Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the results of a poll that the Telegraph commissioned, indicating that the Tories currently face being relegated to third place in Westminster, behind the SNP, should there be a snap election. But I'd also like to discuss why such a staunchly Conservative party would be producing such a poll and presenting such conclusions, especially when the conclusions are not entirely true. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So we're seeing quite a few MRP polls showing a monumental loss for the Conservatives, should there be a sudden election. Now, I'll get on to why the conclusions to these polls are always wrong in the second half of the video. But to begin with, I want to discuss why we're even seeing this in the Telegraph. Like, consider what you normally see. So when polls come out, those on the side who are flattered by the polls, who enjoy them, will share them. Oh, look at this. This is brilliant. Those who are on the wrong side of the polls will make excuses. They may even question the validity of the poll or the pollster. And sometimes you need to question the validity, absolutely, because some polls are just ridiculous, especially when they are well out of line with the other ones on the same issue. And this poll suffers from the same issue that quite a lot of others do. And this will come into it towards the end. It has Reform UK polling on 6%. Reform UK aren't going to get 6% of the vote. They're not even polling that in by-elections where we can see live data. I've said before that somehow their support is being inflated by polls right now, across all polls. But it is at least an issue affecting all of the pollsters, not just the ones that find out now, which the Telegraph use. So we could imagine that their poll, by and large, is reasonably accurate. So this article in the Telegraph, it seems odd, because it's not just that it's a pro-Conservative paper writing about such a poll where you'd think, look what happens normally. Conservative newspapers, by and large, don't really report on very, very damaging stories for the Tories. So why would it not only report on such a poll, but be the ones who commissioned it, be the ones who brought it into existence, and they must have known what it was going to show. After all, there are several MRP polls available to the public which indicate similar results. Those results are that the Conservatives would win no more than 50 seats, 100 tops if they had a good day. A hell of a reversal in fortunes for a party that won about 360 seats at the last election. So why commission this poll and why write about it in these terms? Well, it's a risky game they're playing, but ultimately their purpose will inevitably be to try and get Tory MPs to change direction. What they're trying to say is, look, what you're doing is wrong, all right? It's badly wrong. You need to change. So they'll be trying to steer them to a course more in line with what they want or what they think's best. You know, you can see this in the article. It's not a particularly long piece. And there's hardly any actual analysis of the poll results itself. It reels off some numbers, including that the Conservatives would win 45 seats, which is ridiculous. That would put them behind the SNP, which it reckons would win 50. That would mean Stephen Flynn would be the leader of the opposition against Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, who would have a bit of a seating problem, because the poll reckons he'd have 509 out of the 650 MPs. There's not enough room on the government benches for that many. It's a bit cramped as it is. But other than pointing out that Reform UK are largely taking votes from the Conservatives, which we already knew, it doesn't really discuss the results. It just presents a short series of areas the government should focus on, culminating in the final paragraph, which is clearly where they wanted to go all along, where they give the final word to the former Tory leader who was so bad that they couldn't even give him a general election before sacking him, Ian Duncan Smith. I mean, if you're going to try and take the advice of someone on how to win an election, it is not Ian Duncan Smith. But he reckons the government need to deal with three issues: the small boats issue, the NHS crisis, and cutting taxes to get growth going. Now, I will say, in a way, if the Conservatives tackled those three areas, they would indeed improve their standing in the polls. But it's the Tories who created the small boats crisis, which I may discuss more tomorrow. They've also created the NHS crisis. In addition, their current policies for both are actively designed to make the problems worse, because they know what to do to improve the situation. They're now they're such a big problem that it wouldn't be an overnight fix, but they know what to do to improve it. But they're not doing. So if Ian Duncan Smith thinks that this is needed to win the next election, he may as well stake himself out a good comfy looking seat on the opposition benches now. As for cutting taxes to promote growth, this is not only wrong, the data clearly shows that this is not the way to promote growth. In fact, it promotes a weak economy. But the public are not going to fall for this for a very long time after Liz Truss. They have fallen for it before, they'll fall for it again. But right now, yeah, they're not in the mood for falling for that. But what this will all be about is they're trying to say, look, Sunak is not polling any better than Truss at the moment. So what he's doing is no better than what she did. And you may say, well, hang on a minute. The actual voting intention figures look healthier for Sunak than Truss. They don't look good. And they're on the downturn. But they still look better than they did under the worst days of Truss. But if the MRP results say that the Conservatives are going to win fewer than 100 seats, then practically speaking, the results are no better for Sunak than they were for Truss. The situation they're facing at the election is no better under Sunak than Truss. In a first past the post system, your share of the vote is a minor issue. It's a secondary indicator at best. It's how many seats you win that matters. And that is not in proportion to your share of the vote. This poll indicates that Sunak wouldn't really win any more seats than Truss would have. In practical terms, their power in Parliament would not be any greater after the election. And if Tories start to believe that, Tory MPs, then the next inevitable question is, well, why are we backing Sunak? Because it's quite clear he's bad at politics. It's quite clear he doesn't have the answers to fix our problems. It's also quite clear that his economic policies don't sit comfortably with Conservatives. So why would they continue to back him? That's where this will be going. But that is the why would a Tory paper be adding to the sum total of knowledge that says a Labour government is coming. What about why the conclusions are wrong? It's not because I think the polling has been doctored. It seems a little extreme compared to the others, but various similar polls show a severe thrashing for the Tories. Does it really matter exactly how many seats we think they'll get? It's a walloping when there's going to be an election. It's not the poll that will be part of the problem, but the conclusions that people are drawing in the media. The people treat the poll as like a prediction. It's not. First, before we can have an election, there will have to be an election campaign. That will run for 6 or 7 weeks. That will naturally cause voting intention to change. Because right now, the day-to-day management of Tory PR is managed by Conservative MPs and their advisors. Now, there's no point in being polite here. Many of the most senior Tory MPs are as thick as mince, or at the very least, do not really have any political acumen. They are stunningly bad at politics. As for their advisors, they have proven themselves time and again to be bog useless. During an election campaign, Tory MPs will not be running their PR campaign, and neither will their advisors. They will unleash Isaac Levido again, and he will be carefully managing everything his Tory puppets do and say. Some of the Tories shooting their mouths off now will be told to go and hide in a cave for 6 or 7 weeks, as happened with Priti Patel and Jacob Rees-Mogg during the 2019 campaign. They were banned from speaking. The rest will be given a carefully worded script from which they must not deviate. The whole thing will be carefully staged by a team of real strategists, not the Starbucks brigade that Sunak has hanging around him on a daily basis. In other words, all of a sudden, the Conservative Party will actually look like a professional outfit. It will only last for that 6 or 7 weeks, but for that period of time, they will almost look professional. The second thing that will happen is that the Tory press will rally around the Conservatives. Right now, there's all sorts of articles saying this is wrong and this is wrong. We should have had Boris back and we should never have got rid of him. And this is wrong and you're just getting everything wrong, Sunak. Articles like this, for example, which warn that the Tories are on for a hiding, they'll be gone. The reason they publish these articles is to try and encourage the change that they want. It's infighting. It's Tory infighting. They may want a change of policy. They may just want a change of leader. Come the election campaign, however, the manifesto's out, the leader's in place, everything's set in stone. So the media will then just back the Tories, or most of it will, including the Telegraph. Blue on blue attacks will suddenly cease. They'll rally behind whomever they have in order to stop Labour winning. So then they will not only appear professional, they'll appear united. Again, will only last a few weeks. The third difference is that people taking part in these polls are stating their intention for an election which doesn't exist. So as soon as they know an actual election's coming and that their choice will have a material effect, pragmatism will come to the fore. It always does. You know, there are polls which indicate a large number of traditionally Conservative voters who are currently saying they don't know who they'll vote for. These are people who will vote, or traditionally these are the people that tend to vote. It is possible that a decent number will actually just look at the situation and go, they'll break their normal habits. These are people who do vote time after time, but they'll look at it and go, I can't actually in all good conscience vote for these Tories, but they also don't want to vote for anyone else. So they may just abstain. That will happen for a few. But there'll be quite a lot of them who will just hold their nose and go, well, actually, my vote does matter. I do want to use my vote, which is the lesser of evils. Okay, I'll vote for the Conservatives. That's what they will think. So we know that the Conservative share of the vote will increase as a result of voters who currently can't bring themselves to say they'll vote Tory, even in an anonymous poll. But for an election, that doesn't exist. But for the real election, the one that does exist, the one that does matter, many of them will vote for someone. And it may well be that there are also anti-Tory voters who are currently not saying they'd vote Labour. They'll say, well, I don't agree with this and I don't agree with that policy and I don't like Labour's direction here. They'll be doing the same thing. Come the election, some of them will carry out that intention. But some of them will think, well, it's a choice between them and the Tories. I don't need the Tories in any longer. But there is no evidence in the polls that there are anywhere near as many people who might vote Labour are currently not saying they will, compared to Tory voters who are saying they don't know. So it's likely to be a net gain for the Conservatives as far as we can tell. The main wild card right now is Reform UK. And this is something that the polls really can't, legislate for at all. In 2019, if the Brexit Party had stood candidates in every seat in Britain as they promised, the Conservatives would not have won. That is certain. We don't know whether it would have been a Labour government or whether it would have been a minority Conservative government, but the Conservatives would not have won a majority. So the next election result will also see Reform UK play a large part. I don't think they'll swing the actual results this time, as in who gets to form a government, but I do think they could be instrumental in determining quite a few seats. The difference could be significant. See, they could stand candidates everywhere, like they promised to do last time, like they're promising to do again. That would be a massive problem for the Tories. They could mirror their deal in 2019, which is surely their intention, and only stand candidates in seats that the Tories currently do not hold. Or they could just not put up candidates anywhere, though that would lose them credibility, and actually there is no material difference here. See, because this time, the Tories won't actually care if they put up candidates in non-Tory seats. In 2019, they bleated about it. They whined. And there was good reason for complaining because it cost the Conservatives. Labour in 2019 won about 20 to 30 seats by my estimation, by a small margin, because the Brexit Party split the Tory vote. So their majority could have been way bigger. I mean, 80-seat majority could have turned into like a 140-seat majority. I mean, it could have been absolutely immense. And Labour could have suffered a much more humiliating defeat. It would have included, for example, losing Yvette Cooper, who has been tearing Home Secretaries to shreds for years. That wouldn't have happened. For the next election, the Conservatives are only aiming to retain as many seats as possible. They're not even in their wildest dreams trying to hope they can retain all of their seats. They just want to retain a majority. A majority of 10 right now, they'll snap your hand off for. So the notion of actually diverting resources in trying to capture new seats, that will not be part of their strategy. So they will not care if Reform UK stand in non-Tory seats. They will only care if they stand in ones they currently hold. But it's difficult to really know the impact of that for a couple of reasons. First, polling models are clearly inflating their vote share somehow. We know that from, as I say, actual by-elections where they've been standing and getting nowhere near what the polls at the time say is their vote share. At the same time, they're getting roughly what the Brexit Party did in 2019. And we also do not know, ultimately, will they agree to stand those candidates down in seats that the Tories currently hold? But there we are anyway. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.